Welcome to the LUMR Roundtable, a podcast where we pick one album, focus on it for a month, and then come together to discuss it as a group. This month we have an assortment of music appreciators, Avery, Elle, and Sam here with us. I'm Karina, and here's my co-host Henry to tell you a little bit about the album we chose for this month.
So, out of a hat, we picked an album called Surf by BLACKSTARKIDS. This is a trio from Kansas City. I've seen the genre described as black alternative. On their Bandcamp, they tag the record as hip hop and rap, but probably going to talk genre a little bit later. All kind of releasing music under this DIY sort of record label project called Bedroom Records. All of that is on Bandcamp. Independent release, they're now currently signed to Dirty Hit, but this came out right before then. And yeah, I don't know, should we just kind of open it up and get into what we thought?
Sure. So starting off, I'd love to just hear everyone's initial thoughts on the album overall. Like, had you ever heard of the artist before? What did you think going into it? Elle, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I'd heard of BLACKSTARKIDS as like a band, but I hadn't heard any of their music. So I was actually really excited when this was like the one that was selected. And then like my first impressions was it's nothing like I listen to regularly. So I think, and it took me a couple listens to get into it, but I think that's just because it's like out of my comfort zone. But I'm a convert. I love them. Like, I think it's an amazing album.
Avery, you want to go next?
Yeah. So I hadn't heard of them either. But I loved them like immediately. I thought that their whole album was really great. I liked that it felt very circular to me. So like towards the end, it very like flawlessly flowed back into the beginning. And that's something that I tend to really enjoy personally. Yeah, I have a lot to say about it. I thought it was excellent, super great.
Cool. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, same. I've never heard of them before, but just listening to the first song immediately reminded me of the kind of American garage band feel. I really like those. Like, I have an affinity to that type of kind of lo-fi sound to it. So I really like the album, and yeah, like I have a lot to say about it as well.
Should we go around and just say what our favorite track off of the album was and maybe why that's your favorite track?
I found myself really appreciating Too Depressed for Sex. I don't know if this is a little TMI, but I'm a little depressed myself, so I found the whole record to be pretty relatable. And I think there's a line from that. It's basically like, oh, I just want to like hang out in bed and listen to Frank Ocean and drink wine, and I totally get it. So it feels like these folks are tapping into a feeling with many songs on this record, like Reasons to Exist, that just really hit me deep. So I appreciated tracks like that.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else have a favorite track they want to shout out?
My favorite one was Music to Surf To. So I think that BLACKSTARKIDS just really capture their generation. So all the references to like the early 2000s when I was growing up, and then they also talk about like being anxious and stressed. I just think it's something that we all understand and we all relate to. And there's a line in that one, and it's too stressed to leave the house today. And like, again, like, it's just so relatable. I've been there so many times myself, and that song was so chilled and so relaxed. I'm like, that's the one I've listened to the most. I just have it on repeat. I love it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. It's really pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I think my favorite to listen to was Reasons to Exist. I thought that one was really incredible, just because it felt very like, it had a really amazing beat to the back of it, but it was also very like blue. I use like a lot of colors and stuff to describe music. It was very blue and like roomy and holographic and just like very gorgeous. Like it was very, very, very well done. But yeah, kind of jumping off of what you were saying about Music to Surf To, I think that one was particularly poignant. I think that there was this one line in it, as long as I can play some songs, I really can't complain. I close my eyes and see my friends, girls I've loved, mistakes I've made. That whole verse was really gorgeous to me. And I think like, it kind of made me think like, because you know how in music and art in general, emphasis is kind of determined by what is often repeated over and over. And so in this album as a whole, surf as a concept and also as just like a term that's used is constantly like referenced. And so in this song in particular, made me question like, so why, what is surfing here? Like, what does that really mean? And to me, what I got from it was something, not the sport. Like what I got from it was kind of just like a way to go through life instead of like sinking into those feelings of depression and anxiety that we all struggle with, especially right now. They're kind of saying like, you know, instead of sinking into that, you can surf on top of it. You can meditate and really feel, be present, and like ride the waves of life and your emotions and stuff. And so I thought that this album, especially this song, was like a really excellent metaphor for all of those things that we kind of struggle with together. I thought it was really beautiful.
That was really good. I don't know how to top that descriptions of how I felt, but yeah, I think it's similar. For me, my favorite song is still the first one. Like immediately when I first listened to the album and I heard the first song, I thought about like, yeah, the American kind of garage band kind of kids just like playing music kind of feel. It reminded me a lot of this artist called Alex G, who's I think Canadian, but also a collection of music called All American Rejects. In any case, it's all like the same kind of like people who have something to say about how they're feeling and they want to express it. And like they express it through kind of shouting it out through music, is a kind of feel. And the first song in the album called Sounds Like Fun to me definitely sounds like kids who want to like they're not feeling very good at like right now, so they want to like just have fun to forget about everything. And I definitely felt that like I listened to the music and then I kind of like I really wanted to dance myself as well. So that is my favorite song. And then from that point on, like it kind of allowed me to keep listening to all of the subsequent songs, including the ones that started to get a bit more kind of personal, like yeah, Teaser Press for Sex, or even like the more like low-key ones like the Music to Surf to ones.
Talking about Sounds Like Fun, that was the first track I heard. This was, by the way, a Discover Weekly find, which I feel like most of the time is kind of a crapshoot, kind of just gives me the same stuff. But I heard Sounds Like Fun and I actually thought it was a turnover song because it was like playing in the other room and it kind of has that peripheral vision kind of production on it. But someone mentioned that the record is kind of cyclical, and there's also these kind of small skits throughout the album, like they're playing a live gig, and like right at the last, I don't know, maybe the last 30 seconds to 60 seconds of the album, they're like done with the gig. They're like, thanks, Kansas City. And then it kind of picks up again before the official end of the record. Anyways, I was just stewing on that idea and completely agree that like the start of the album sets the tone and lets you kind of pace through all these different feelings by the end. Kind of like the motif of surfing, you kind of just ride the wave. And before long, you're kind of right back where you started at the top of the record.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite songs was towards the end of the record called How I Met Your Mother. I thought that was a really good one. The guitar like line at the end is just so beautiful and bittersweet and melancholy. And it was, yeah, that's probably my favorite album. And I love those little like skits and like almost like they were on a radio show or something, like at the beginning and end of some of the songs. I thought that was really fun.
Something that I kept writing down as I was listening to it the first time through was, oh my gosh, you guys really know how to start a song. Like every song was started really, really strong. And that's something I think is kind of rare. It's very rare that like at the beginning of a song, before you even actually introduce your hook or your chorus or anything that the song is like about, at the very beginning, just like totally very engaging. I thought almost every single song I felt that way about. My notes were like, wow, oh my gosh, the whole time through.
I found the whole album engaging, because with the skits, when they say like, oh, we've got one more song for you, it makes you feel like you're in the room with them, or you're at a live gig, which, especially given the current situation, I found that so nice. I was like, you're talking to me. I felt included in the album as it went through, which works so well with the amount of, like, it's such an emotive album. Like, it really does explore some quite heavy stuff. So I just loved, yeah, like you said, like how engaging it was the whole way through.
I tend to like to go into music kind of blind, not knowing whatever like is going on, and then just listening to see like if I can relate to it. Definitely this album, and I guess like I haven't listened to any other of their music yet. I think until after this podcast, because I didn't really want to have it taint my view of what it sounds like. But still, like going into the blind and like not really knowing who the artists are and like what their views are, I liked it.
Yeah, just going in with that unbiased opinion. I think you won't have to wait long for more music. They've just released another album, like 2 days ago. We were talking about that earlier. I may have listened to it because I wanted to, and it's really good. I really like it. It gave me very much a lot of, I think Elle mentioned like the early 2000s references and influences. Like they have a song called like Britney, and then there's Frankie Muniz that was like from Agent Cody Banks, and just so many early 2000s references. And it really made me think of like, I can't explain why, but it feels like the Rugrats when they were teenagers, that like spin-off of Rugrats when they grow up and they're like teenagers. Like if they made an album, I feel like that's what it sounded like to me. I can't really explain that, but
yeah, the way I got notes of, I think I know what you're saying, because like I kind of wrote down that it was even this album was very what did I say, infused with teenage nostalgia. It's very much how it felt in a lot of ways.
And that's like super in right now. Like the 2000s are back. And I was talking to Karina before we recorded. So they're signed to Dirty Hit now. And we were just talking about that latest record that dropped. I'm like 95% sure that's the label the 1975 is signed to. And I think I remember reading something about Maddie Healy sharing some BLACKSTARKIDS stuff on social media, and knowing where 1975 is going and kind of where BLACKSTARKIDS is at right now, I think that stuff's totally here to stay, which I am definitely here for.
I don't know if this is something to add, but I feel like it's quite specific, like the sound. It sounds very American compared to like, I don't know, the UK here. The kind of like 2000s American feel, they definitely did capture it. Yeah.
I think part of that is like it's still very lighthearted. Like even though everything that we were just discussing, like all of the heavy stuff that it talks about, it addresses all of those things, but it does so in a really important way, I think, because they toe the line of like relating to your audience about heavy things without depressing your audience, which is really hard to do, I think. Like I feel like a lot of music that addresses those things kind of has the potential to leave your audience feeling not worse, but like not feeling better, or just like kind of like leaving you on the same path that you were, like laterally, not really moving upwards. But with them, I felt like the way that they talked about everything was very validating and not at all like diminishing of those negative experiences, but at the same time, like uplifting and like empowering and inspiring hope, rather than just like kind of leaving you there. And I think again, like kind of going back to the whole metaphor that I got from it personally of like surfing rather than sinking, I think that kind of lends itself to that. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I would totally agree with that. Elle, did you have something you wanted to add?
I read a review, and the writer of this review said that they were forward-facing nostalgia, and I just completely agreed with that. Like, even though they have all these references, some of which I don't get, like I know it's a reference, but I think it's like because I'm English, they're American. but even though it's still really refreshing and original. So forward-facing nostalgia. If I could sum up in 3 words, I would steal those ones.
Yeah, I think those are really good, a really good description of them. One band from the UK, I think they sound like, is this lesser known band I saw perform in the Notting Hill Arts Club in like February, I think, called Birthday Card. They have that very like early 2000s look as well as sound, a little bit more auto-tune than Black Star Kids with like their vocal effects pedal, but it works, and it's very much new emo pop sort of sound, you know. So that is one UK artist that I think they sort of sound like. And then Brockhampton is the other one that came up in my mind, sort of that guilty pleasure type of music, and the spoken word and rap parts as well, I think sound a lot like them. Did you guys have anybody else you think sounds similar or maybe would have been like an influence for them?
Yeah, I think Deaton, Chris Anthony, if anyone's ever listened to any of that, it's kind of more on the hip hop side of this multi-genre album. It sounds a lot like that, which is kind of that lo-fi bedroom hit. Like if you've seen the YouTube like study 24/7 lo-fi hip hop anime beats stream, if you're into that stream, you'd be into this album. I also mentioned Peripheral Vision by Turnover, which Turnover's definitely changed a lot. And so if you like prefer the new Turnover, maybe you might not like this, but I think if you liked Peripheral Vision, I'd recommend this album to you.
As I was saying a while ago, the two kind of sonic influences I can think of are Alex G. I don't know if anybody else has heard of them, but they're Canadian, and they have that kind of almost, I don't know how to say it, but like I want to say cry for help, but it's not really a cry for help. It's more like a expression, like something to say so they can only say it through music kind of feeling. And then the other band I was saying was All American Rejects. Well, they're not a band, sorry. All American Rejects is an album of collection of artists who are doing kind of like punky, alternative rock stuff, which I feel like they all do like come through in, or at least like they remind me, this album reminded me of them.
Yeah, like maybe the mood of it. That's All American Rejects. I definitely remember growing up from like the early 2000s, and then Alex G I think is a good one too, because he's very much from the DIY world. Like he started out just in his bedroom making music, so I think that lends to their very like just DIY background and making exactly the type of music that they want to make. And I think the authenticity and sincerity that comes from that, and the emotional depths of some of the songs, even though they are very like uplifting and happy sounding, they do have some pretty dark lyrics sometimes. I think we mentioned some of them before, but like Dirty Dancing and then Too Depressed for Sex had some dark lyrics, but they're really beautiful songs. And I think that's really important. I think like Avery was mentioning, they don't get you down. They lift you up, even if and it's comforting to sort of hear that someone else has felt that way, and the way that they put it into the song, I think is really beautiful.
Sorry, I want to make a correction. Not All American Rejects, it's All American Edition. I just looked it up again.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's making more sense.
It's an album that came out in 2015, and it's got songs from bands called Check Me Out, The Feel, Big Bopper, Queuing, Passing Through. Just a lot of like kind of, I guess like smaller bands that nobody has ever heard of, the very DIY stuff, not a big American band like All American Rejects. Right.
Yeah, Karina, to bounce off what you were saying there, it feels like the album does a good job of normalizing talking about these mental health topics like stress, anxiety, depression, without romanticizing them. Because it just felt like over the last like 5 to 10 years, as mental health has moved more into like the public space and it's becoming less stigmatized to talk about, a lot of people maybe romanticize it. And that always feels kind of like not great. Whereas this feels super genuine. And I think that's kind of what we're all saying is like, yeah, it makes sense. It checks out.
Yeah, definitely. do we have any other favorite lines we want to mention or anything like that? Like, so what's something that you really liked about the album?
I think just now I realized it reminded me a lot of like Scott Pilgrim, the film, or even like Scott Pilgrim, the comic series. Like the music that they're playing right now feels like what they would play, but I guess maybe in 2020, you know. Sorry, I don't really know where I'm going with this. It's just something that just popped up in my head just now. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yeah.
I just kind of like the way they played with genre the whole time. We kind of addressed that at the beginning, but I thought it was a really fun way to kind of play with, like having like rap being in front of like a really cool like electric guitar that was very like mellow and like bright. So it's not something I hear super often. Also, like I would say 90% of their synth lines were beautiful, and their synth patches and everything that they chose synthesizer wise was like excellent. Very, very well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked, I think we talked about like the little like sound bites, skits they would do at the beginning and end of some of the songs. I thought that was really cool. The female like R&B, almost R&B type vocal parts were just really beautiful, juxtaposed against like the just straight spoken word stuff. And then they had the other like auto-tuned vocal layering, and just kind of weaving those three together was a really cool like genre blending effect that I think is very topical right now, as is the 2000s culture references, because genres are disappearing. So it's just kind of like whatever you want to make, whatever you want to call it, is great. It doesn't have to be as clearly defined.
Maybe this is a good place to seg into like thinking about like what kind of genre is surf or BLACKSTARKIDS in general, because I can't quite put my finger on it. It's not what I thought. Like I heard when I listened to the first song, I thought, oh, I know what this is, and then I continued to listen to it and I realized, wait, no, I don't quite know what this is. Like, is this hip hop? Is this rock? Is this lo-fi? I don't know.
I almost wonder if we're starting to see the beginning of a branch of sort of a new direction in genre. You know, there was a time when like punk eventually became hardcore, and at first that probably sounded pretty jarring, like, well, what are you doing to the sound here? You're mixing things that ought not to be mixed. But on this record, they're also well integrated. Somebody was talking about Reasons to Exist, and like that song kind of genre shifts multiple times in such a good way. It felt so authentic that I kind of wondering if we're seeing like maybe new territory for this exact sound. I guess we'll see now that they're signed and supposed to get really big.
Yeah, that's kind of something I was going to point out, is that I can't wait to hear what they say about their own genre, or even if they want to be labeled by a genre. I think on a certain level, like a lot of artists like don't really care, but some people really do. And I think it's really interesting when artists kind of decide what they are for themselves. I think it's always really empowering for them and interesting for us to hear, because I think you're right. I think most like genres are constantly evolving, like ever changing. Like genres that we think of now as rock is like not, it's turned into classical rock, or classic rock, not classical rock. But like, you know what I mean? So yeah, so many genres right now also are just like a mishmash of a bunch of different ones. They're just like indie pop alternative psych, and it's like is that a genre? I don't know, I guess so. It's like 5 genres in one, but whatever. So I'm interested to see what they say about their own genre. I had one more thing to add, something that I don't tend to hear very often, especially with like bands with multiple genders in the band, is like such an empowering like feeling that they give each other. Like in the song Love Stargirl, when they would go back and forth between the men and the women who were speaking or singing, they were just so empowering towards her, and it was like so gorgeous and lovely to hear somebody talk so like lovingly about someone else without being like in any way weird, and just such a great feeling of friendship and mutual respect. And that was really great to hear.
Yeah, I think there's a really strong friendship that's like tangible through the songs. Should we do final thoughts? Sam, you want to start?
Sure. I think Final Thoughts is like, this is an album that I would definitely recommend to someone, or it would be an album that I would put on when I'm road tripping, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not very good at like kind of like describing how I feel about something, but like I generally like to describe things of like what I would want to do with it.
I do that too. Yeah, contextually.
Yeah, like yeah, I would. This is an album that I would have put on a road trip, kind of like at the background. But then like sometimes the lyrics would come to the foreground, and like I would start thinking about it a little bit while I'm like driving or while I'm, I don't know, as a passenger, like kind of thinking through it. And it could be like some sort of conversation topic with whoever I'm like road tripping with. That's kind of the feeling of how this album gets to me. So, you know, like the next time when I'm, I don't know, road tripping with someone, I'll remember this and I'll put it on, and then maybe something will happen. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good to hear. Elle, do you want to say your final thoughts on it?
I just loved how much of a personality they have throughout the whole album, like across the genres. They just keep it together well, and it's all very tied in well together. So it's a good talent to have.
Henry, you got any final thoughts?
Definitely would recommend, especially to people who feel like they're maybe stuck in a rut when it comes to music. Maybe they've been listening to the same stuff. Quarantine's got us kind of maybe in our own channels. So I think this is a good like taste breaker.
Yeah, I would agree. Avery?
Love it. Can't wait to see where they go. They're great. So excited.
Me too. I think they're going to be doing some great things. And like we mentioned earlier, they got a shout out from like Maddie Healy, which is really cool. And they're signed now. So I think it's going to be really great. That's about it, everybody. So we're going to sign off here. But thank you so much for joining us for the roundtable this month. I really had a great time, and it was great to hear all of your opinions on everything. And stay tuned for next month to hear us discuss another album. We'll see you guys.
And dinner.